Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the rookie civilian fast attack and recon hover vehicle, the 6th vehicle in my Wimpomania line of vehicles. My name is Wimpoman, and I'm the chief designer, chief builder, chief architect, and of course chief dumbass behind the rookie update project. Before I do the tour, a couple of really quick things to say. The first is that I've had a headache for most of the day. It's mostly gone now, but it's left me rather woozy, so I will be stumbling over my words more than usual, most likely. The second is you will notice as I look around, there are quite a few other vehicles lying about. Don't worry, I will cover them. They are important, just I will get to them later in the video. Right, so as I said, this is an updated vehicle, so first I'm going to show you the original vehicle. And here is the original rookie. Do you know what? I didn't make a note of what I originally called this now, and of course I've renamed everything. Oh, is it on a screen? High Mobility Fast Assault. Yes. So there are a couple of things wrong with that. The first is that since then I've sort of learned, oh no, mobility is maneuverability and agility, so that's kind of right. But the assault word is wrong. And then the tank. So it does have an artillery turret, which is what makes a tank in my building rules a tank. But that was the only tank-like thing on it. So but if you're familiar with any of my Wimpomania builds, because this might be the first tour of mine you've seen in the Wimpomania line, but if so you can sort of ignore this, but if it's not, then you might recognize this was a variant of the Initiate Shuttle, the original one. Only a hover vehicle and a tank. Now, the one thing that the new one is different from this one, I mean, there are quite a few things, but the main one really is that the entry and the interior is at the back and then along the middle. Whereas on the new one, the entry is at the side and it's only the front half that you can walk around in, is the main difference. So as usual with my updates, this was built pre 1.0, so before the game was fully released, which means it had no weights and volumes containers, it had no CPU, it had no shield either. Now technically that one doesn't also see what I mean, headache, but yeah, that one just doesn't come with one, but it has a slot for one. I'll cover that more obviously in the upgrade bit. But this one didn't even have the option. So now again, like I said, I will talk about all of the rest of the stuff later on, but for now that will do. Right, so that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be her role and her task equipment. Right, so her role as a fast attack recon hover vehicle, fast attack and recon, is a light combat and scouting vehicle, and in order to facilitate those tasks technically, again as usual you can normally count the thrusters, but you especially can on this one. As you can see, there's lots of forward thrust. It's not exactly lacking in the lateral thrust or the reverse thrust, although nowhere near as much as forward, but whatever. And of course it has a relatively decent amount of weapons. I mean, I'm sure you can find vehicles with more weapons that are about this size, but you know, they would cover every spare bit, I suppose, and they wouldn't be retractable, which of course is one of my rules that I follow. So with a civilian vehicle in lore, L-O-R-E, I consider there to be a law, L-A-W, that civilian vehicles have to have retractable turrets. They can't have turrets on show. Now there are some exceptions to that with the SVs, because the SVs don't come with retractable ones, vanilla at least. The hell was that? A lorry braking. Squeaky brakes. So there we go. That's basically everything it uses to facilitate its tasks. So that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be her propulsion, handling, and lift capacity. Okay, her propulsion then, starting with her forward thrust. So she has 2 medium tier 2 thrusters on the backs of the nacelles here. And she has 11 medium tier 1s, 3 there, 2 there, matching on the other side, and then top and bottom of the nacelles. I was thinking about putting another one there, but I felt that would take away too much from its lateral. So funny enough, let's go to the reverse thrust now. So 6 medium tier 1s, 2 there and matching on the other nacelle there, and then these on the front at the nose. Now likewise, so the original had its headlights on the corners. Had I done that, that thruster would needed to have been there, which meant 1 less lateral thruster there, which is why I've swapped them round to give an extra lateral thrust. But had I done both of those, it would have only had 5 going sideways instead of the 7 it has. Laterally, it has 7 medium tier 1s, 4 on the sides of the nacelles, and then 4 at the front, which has replaced where the Gatling guns are on the original, in case you care. Obviously, they are 2 blocks long, so they do encroach into the cab a little bit, but never mind, performance is more important in my opinion. Or generally speaking, maybe not, but with this one it is, because of its role, I think. So, handling. Oh, no, lift. So, on by default, there are 2 large hover engines and 13 small. There's 5 there and then a further 8 there. As you can see, there are some off. They are set, of course, to max lift. Max lift will turn on another 2 large and another 4 smalls. And as you can see, it also has 3 hover boosters for your jumping needs. So now we can move on to handling. So its mobility, starting with its maneuverability, it'll accelerate forwards at 42 meters per second squared. And I have checked quite a few of my armoured fighting hover vehicle series, and that is at least double, if not triple, what some of the actual tanks and stuff have. So its reverse isn't very good, 18 meters per second squared, it'll accelerate backwards. Now, not a lot I could have done about that, although, no, I will talk about it in the other info. There was another version of this that nearly was, but I decided against it, and I'll talk about that later. Laterally, 21. Then it's agility. Now, as usual with a HV, I only find yaw important for turning, 46 degrees per second. The other one, which is the other 2, I should say, that is slightly more important is pitch for transitioning between flat ground and slopes, 29. Roll is 36. But not particularly important. No, I'm not going to give it a test drive this time because there is too much around for me to crash into and embarrass myself. Right, so that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be her power, fuel, and air. Now, as usual with my tours, I'm going to talk about this stuff now, then show you where it is when I get to the interior layout. So power, it has 3 small power generators. It has 2 small and 10 large fuel tanks to aid... Oh, do you know what? That could probably have been in the task equipment bit. So I've given it plenty of fuel so that it can run all of the thrusters for longer, is the idea. And then air, it has 5 O2 tanks, 2 O2 stations, 1 ventilator, but no compartmentalization. There is only 1 compartment, and it is the entire of the interior, basically from the door to the nose. Right, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be her weapons, defences and construction. So stock, the word stock would obviously suggest that there is some upgrade opportunities here, and I'll cover those in that bit at the end of the, or nearer the end of the video. But stock, she comes with 2 fixed Gatling guns, she comes with 3 rocket launcher turrets, and 5 Gatling turrets, 2 at the top, 2 on the sides, and 1 at the back, pointing backwards. Defences, as I said earlier, she doesn't come with a shield, but one can be added. She does have some armour, but her armour is all steel. So on the interior, can I get a relatively decent view? So as you can see, I'm inside a fuel tank and there is a block. If I go into that block, you'll see there, apart from 1 block up. Oh, I was I was 1 block too low. Okay, so there, right. So this is all steel because when you lose a turret or a thruster, I didn't want there to now be a hole leading into the fuel tanks. So behind all of this is steel, or of course container extensions. And then as for her construction, as I've been doing recently, I've got an unpainted one to show you what she's made of, and as you can see, she's made almost entirely out of hardened steel. Now there is some steel on her, mostly on the bottom of the cab. Now there is hardened steel at the back because above there is important stuff that you don't want to be destroyed. But forward of that block is just the internals. I mean, no, the interior, yes, so the bit you can walk around in. And there's also a really small amount of carbon composite, but I think all of that actually is the upgrade slots in order to make ripping them out easier. So there you go, relatively easy, it's all hardened steel. Apart from that bit there. So any armour on the inside, as I said, is just steel. Right, that's the end of that segment then. So the next segment is going to be her resource gathering, production and storage. Right, resource gathering, she has none. I did play around with the idea, not that it's particularly important, with getting a harvester module, a tree cutter, whatever it's called now, on the front, but I didn't really like the way it looked, harvester module. I mean, so when I tried it, the lights were there, and of course, I mean, the light technically shines through, and I have used that in some builds. I have exploited that, but I didn't really like the idea of something being in the way of the headlights, and it wasn't really explainable. So I decided against it, but there we go. So no resource gathering. Production, she does come with a constructor just there. I was like, what's that like? Of course it's the cargo box. And storage, so her ammo box is a 3k SU ammo container. She has 2 500 SU cargo containers. She also has a single large and 2 small cargo boxes, a mini fridge, yes, and an armour locker. So not a lot, but, you know, she's relatively small. Right, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment then is going to be the interior layout and any remaining devices. Right, so before I go in, any remaining devices on the outside, I always forget the docking pads. So she has 6, 2 there, 2 in the middle, and 2 right at the front. These doors shutters, ramps. I mean, I call these shutters even though they're ramps because they do the same job as a shutter, but whatever. So these allow you to access fuel and the core. Oh, and there's the core. And then these give you access to the generators and the upgrade slots that are up in there. They are labelled. I will, of course, show you that later on when we get to the upgrade bit. I don't think... headlights, I showed you those already. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. Oh, the tail lights, and yeah. So as usual, with a HV of mine, I have my red flares on the back. If you don't like them, you can turn them off, and if you hate them, you can multi-tool them off. I will show you how to turn them off later when we get to the shortcuts and signals. Let's walk around inside. So there is a motion sensor there. That powers the ramps leading up to the door and the light that illuminates the ground around the vehicle when you're parked. As you can see, it doesn't do the door. So quite often with a combat vehicle, I will leave the door manual because I don't want you walking up to an O2 station on the inside. You've walked into the sensor field, the door opens, and then you get shot. Is why I quite often leave it off. So as you can see, clone chamber, O2 station. We have a space for a pentaxid tank when you upgrade. There's the ammo container controller. Armor locker, constructor, a small cargo box. There's the sensor for the lights in here. In case you care, there are 2 footlights there and then 2 ceiling lights up there. There's one of the 500 SU cargo containers. There's the other one. CPU upgrades are here, and as you can see by the LCD screens, that's where you would put the tier 4s as well, rip those out. On this side, in medic station, the large cargo box, the mini fridge, and the second cargo box. We also have the pilot seat right at the front, surrounded by glass, and this is one of the things that... Oh, I should have, again, put this in the task equipment. So one of the things that makes this a Recon vehicle is the fact that the cockpit seat and the cockpit is so open with all this glass. I mean, I know it's got some rather hefty structural beams there, but whatever. As opposed to tanks, which have a tiny little portal to look through. Right, going into the back, there are 9. I should have covered that in the propulsion. There are 9 RCSs in here in order to improve mobility. There's 3 of them. There's another 3. There's 3 on the other side. There's the small generators, and basically the rest in here is either fuel tanks or the upgrade slots. At the back, as I showed you through those shutters, is the core. The only other thing to show you is above the core, on top of the core, is the wireless connector. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's everything. So the next segment then is going to be her shortcuts and signals. Right. First thing I need to say is please don't auto-group the devices, because some of these device group shortcuts obviously rely on my custom device groups. The second is that this yellow, orange, whatever you want to call it, light is normal, and that's because the shield device group is empty, but although I can't show it to you now, the shortcut for that group is already set as the all weapons and shields shortcut. And of course the game is showing you that something is wrong with this shortcut, and that all that is the device group for the shields is empty. Right, so as usual, the top device group is propulsion, etc. That'll turn on all of the thrusters, all of the RCSs, and what I referred to earlier as the default hover engines. The next one down is max lift. That will obviously turn on the other hover engines. Shush you. Going back to the all weapons and shields, so that will of course turn on all of the weapons, so all of the turrets, all of the fixed weapons, and once it's installed, the shield. Should I? In case you don't believe... Loud. In case you don't believe me, I'll edit out the loud putting away. There we go. Right, the next one down is constructor. That simply turns on and off the constructor, so that if you're constructing something and then you walk away from it, get in your cockpit seat, and it isn't constructing anything, I wanted to give you a way to turn it off when you remember that it's still on without getting out of the seat again. So air vents, if this is the first tour video of mine you have seen, I will cover this, but just in case you have seen others, I will cover this quickly. If we have a look at the power left and turn oxygen off, power left doesn't change because although it's no longer blowing air into the cab, it doesn't turn the ventilator block off. So if we watch that number and turn the air vent off, it now will change, so you can save a bit of power in a breathable atmosphere. Next three are empty, so on to the custom signals. As usual, we have a power save switch. Power save on mine will do, so turning it on will turn off things like the LCD projectors. It'll also turn off all of the upgrade slot LCDs. It'll turn off the Wi-Fi. And of course the motion sensors for the lights and the ramps. Yeah. Right, the next one is the fixed Gatling guns. Actually, I'll talk about the next one down as well, the Gatling turrets. So I wanted to give you a way to turn on the Gatling guns and just the Gatling turrets in case, for example, you wanted to take out a drone. There's no point turning on, I mean, unless you actually change the... I forgot that in the weapons bit. So the targeting parameters, I might as well talk about it now since I'm talking about the weapons. The rocket turrets are set to what I consider to be my heavy turrets targeting configuration. They will target the generators and turrets of bases, capital vessels and hover vehicles. The Gatling turrets are my anti-personnel weapons, so they will target predators, NPCs and drones. Now, unless you change the configuration, the heavy turrets won't target drones. So if you come across a drone or two, I didn't want you to have to waste power turning on the shields once it's installed and the heavy weapons just to shoot down a couple of drones. Grr. And likewise, if you needed to take out a spider or you were, for whatever reason, hunting lizard mules in this, I didn't want you to turn everything on and waste power again just so you could use the Gatling guns for a couple of seconds. So that's why I've done that. Obviously, turning that on will still turn these on. I haven't actually tried to see what would happen if I turned those on and then that on. But I'm pretty sure, based on what I know about the game, if you turn that on and then turn those on and off, they should still stay on because this is on, but I don't know if it works the other way around. I closed the window, don't know why, then put my hand down in the wrong place. Headlights. So I given you a shortcut switch for the headlights. So there was a point where I'd forgotten why I did that, and then I remembered in a recent tour actually. It's so when you're sat in the seat, in the cockpit seat, you can turn the headlights on and off just with a keyboard shortcut. I don't know if it defaults to L for Lima, but that's mine. However, when you're not in a seat, I wanted to give you a way to still turn it off. So there you go. Tail lights, as I said, they're for those. If you don't like them, turn them off. And then finally, we have closed doors. So these are manual. And then these access shutters are also manual. So I didn't want you to get into your driver's seat, go to the third person view, notice that those were open and then have to get out of the seat again. So flicking that switch will close any of those that are open, and of course it will only close them, it won't open them again. Ta-da! Right then, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be her CPU and upgrading. Right, CPU then, she is a tier 3, just under 2200, no, just under 22,000 of the 30,000 you are allowed, yes. In case you're skipping around in the video, I will show you where the core is, behind that shutter there, in front of a bit of hardened steel. And the CPU extenders are here on the right hand side of the cockpit cabin place area. Obviously they are right up against a turret. I can't really do much about that. I wanted to use as much space as possible. Upgrading then. She does have an upgrade path, as I've shown you a few times actually already. She has some upgrade slots. I'm going to pick the vehicle up off the floor for a second. No, actually I'm not. The astute among you, I changed my mind, will notice some stuff on my hotbar. So this is the recommended upgrades. You will of course need to turn the vehicle off. Oh, I've forgotten some things. There we go. Oh, hang on. You need 4, not 999. Okay. So, the upgrade path for this, I would start with the CPU. So, hang on, there we go. Pick up those. The screens and the carbon composite blocks around them. And then the tier 4s will go there, and I mean, you don't have to turn them around, but that's the way I would do it, there and there. As the screen suggested, this is the pentaxid tank slot. Let's pop that in there. Of course, you can paint these whatever you want, but I'm going to paint that colour, and I'm going to paint those the primary colour, as it were. Oh no, let's do these first. Right, so there is a weapon slot on top. Mouse wheel. Remove that screen and that block, and now you've got a slot for an extra fixed weapon. Of course, you can put a railgun there if you like, but I personally would say the pulse laser would be better because it would help you take down shields betterer. I'll do grouping in a bit. Right. The heavy weapons. So, do you know what? I'm in God mode, so I'm just going to cheat a little bit. And creative, I should say. Right. So you take up the rocket launchers, you replace them with plasmas. Again, this is my suggestion. I mean, if you can figure out a way to get an artillery turret on top, you're more than welcome to. I downgraded from an artillery turret for the from the original because the artillery turret is a tank weapon, and I don't see any reason why civilians would have tanks. Right then, so turn those off. So up through these shutters, you remove the LCD screens. Let's do it that way, the way you would actually. The LCD projectors, I should say. Those are the ones showing you where what goes. Of course, if you want to put these a different way around, you can. If you want the shield on the bottom and the generators at the top, by all means do it. But it's actually supposed to be this way round. Only because... really, the generators have that little keypad on them, which I feel should be accessible from this hatch. Is the only real reason they is this way around. So yeah, feel free to put the shield generator on the bottom if you would like. Now I'm pretty sure you can figure out the device groups, but just in case you can't, of course the CPU extenders go in the core and CPU extenders device group. Yeah. The power generators, of course, go into the power generation group, which is under the number 1 category, as you can see, for basically essentials. Of course, feel free to rename them or not, it's up to you. Pentaxid tank goes in the fuel tanks group. The shield goes into the shield group, which is under 3 for defences, category 3. That will mean that this now stops being loud orange, and as you can see the shortcut is set. I didn't have to redo it. Pulse weapon, the pulse laser even goes in fixed weapons. Oh my god, stumbling over words. And then these plasma turrets go in heavy weapons. and then of course you can, now that now that you've taken away the rocket turrets, you can of course set them to whatever device targeting parameters you prefer. Ta-da! Done! Nice and simple-ish. So now we have a tier 4 vehicle, wrong one, which, I mean, isn't particularly high. So, oh, and so feel free, of course, to put those... Oh yeah, because I deleted them, didn't I, rather than multi-tool them up. But feel free to utilise those rocket turrets wherever you like. Right then, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment, and last segment actually, is going to be any other info. And this is the bit where I'm going to talk about the other vehicles and stuff. Now the first thing I want to talk about is the other colour in the palette. So it comes with two primary colours, the Wimpomania blue that it comes in stock. And it comes with this military green colour, in case you want to turn it military green. See, this could have been a military vehicle, and then I wouldn't have needed to worry about retracting the weapons. Chief Dumbass. I do say it, Chief Dumbass. So, we have a secondary colour. I'm going to turn that off before I make any mistakes. Actually, I do want to talk about the colour of the originals real quick. Now, I have talked about this in other tours, so you can ignore this if you like. As you can see, the blue has changed. So, this was before we could actually configure the palette. And the Wimpomania line was originally painted in this blue. And looked more like that, which is so much better. For some reason, for whatever reason... the vehicles of the Wimpomania line, undo. I was like, what am I looking for? Just do not look very good in that blue. I don't know why. There's something about that blue that just doesn't suit any of the vehicles. So, they updated the portable constructor, the one you can put down, and it was a similar blue to that. So when I started to do the Survival and Defense series of builds that were supposed to be related to that portable constructor, I used that blue for those and decided why would I have the same blue for a different series of vehicles. I regret it now. I should have just gone, why can't you use the same blue? But that's why these are a garish blue. Garish? And why I've used a more muted greyish blue on the original. Let's talk about the design of this first, the new one. So this is the new Initiate Shuttle. Yeah, okay. And this is the new Trainee Miner. And you might be able to tell what I've done with this. The front end is basically, other than move the door and add a turret, the front end is the Initiate Shuttle, and then the back end is this trainee class, except here I've taken that nacelle off and added a sort of tank outrig thing. Yeah, let's talk about this next. So this is nearly what it was going to be. The one that nearly was. So I was building this and I was happy with the way it looked until I stopped building for the night and then came back to it the next day. And I didn't like it when I came back to it. So especially because, and this will lead me on to those, this was supposed to be more pointy and streamlined, and that just really isn't. So I decided to try, because I did originally try to do it pointy and streamlined, but I couldn't get this configuration to work. And I think it's probably because I was stubbornly trying to keep the light there, but I was also struggling with finding places for the hover engines. So when I came back, I put more work into it, obviously figured it out and fixed whatever issues I was having and came up with that. But this was very nearly what you got. Did I say, when I talked about it, so front end of this, except the cockpit is brought in by a block on each side to make it more streamlined, like the original. The original, as you can see, was based on the original Initiate shuttle, sort of like the new one is, kind of, sort of, ish, except more so. And that's where these things come in. So, I was playing, like I said, this was built before the game was fully released, before 1.0, and I was playing on a server with my best mate, and we went to attack a POI, something, with turrets on it, and I rocked up in what is my original Jackal main battle hover tank. This has been updated since, but that's what it used to look like. And he turned up in this from the workshop, the low altitude armoured battle tank. Now, this is big, or bigger, heavy, because it's combat steel, and slower, because it doesn't have as many thrusters, as well as also being bigger and heavier. So this thing, I would sit far enough away from a base that its turrets wouldn't shoot at me, but within range of my artillery turret, and I would then control the I would take control of it and shoot and snipe at the enemy's turrets myself using the artillery turret. So I went to do that while like I said, my best mate was driving this, assuming he was going to do something similar. But no, he charged in this and was zipping around all over the place. And of course his turrets were going ham on the enemy base, and the enemy base was struggling to hit this because it's smaller, it's faster, it's lighter. And I was kind of in awe a little bit of how cool that looked. So after that, I decided I wanted a version of this, a smaller, faster, more nimbler tank, and that's why I then turned the Initiate shuttle into a HV tank-like and did that. So this one was slightly better armed because I managed to get some rocket turrets on top and a Gatling on the back. Of course, this was pre-retractable turrets, so that was never a consideration about whether civilian vehicles should be retractable or not. Now, this, the low-altitude armoured battle tank, was itself an update from someone else's build, which is the ARMH40. And you can see the similarities and the things that the author of this... Actually, let's give some credits where credits were due. So, the ARM40... I have read through this and I can't see anywhere what the ARMH40 stands for. The ARMH40 was built by someone called Medicine Head. If we go to Medicine Head's workshop, they have one build. So it isn't even like that stands for, you know, the manufacturer that builds it or the series in which it belongs or anything. I don't know. So the low altitude armored battle tank was an update for that by J Terp, who obviously gives credit, but they didn't like the interior, and I can see why. So we have a 1 block wide entry and then a 1 block wide interior. Now that's fine if it's sat flat, but on a slope that becomes difficult. Obviously not this slope. And then there's that. So there was no such thing as crouch when this was built. So you had to access here. Oh, and how do you close the door now? How do you close the door now? You can't. You can't close the door. The door is open now. I suppose you have to you do that. So yeah, I can see why. What was it? J Terp. I can see why they decided to update that. It also seems that, like me, they hate the cockpit blocks, or they refuse to use them for whatever reason. I'm sure those of you who are familiar with my builds will probably have noticed I don't use the cockpit blocks either. I have explained once or twice, but I consider them to be rather cheap when it comes to building. They're very easy to use, and I think it's more challenging to try to get an interior that you can actually enter. I love this thing. So in case you care, I'm actually thinking next. So after I finish this and it's up on the workshop, I'm going to do an update for this. And I think I'm going to make it a military vehicle so I don't have to worry about retractables and stuff. I'm going to do a tier 2 and a tier 3. Because as you can see with the artillery and the plasmas, it is quite high for a tier 2. I'm gonna update it again, pop it on the workshop. I will do my best to keep it. So there are some things that obviously I can do that the original authors couldn't, because we have additional block shapes, for example here, that the original authors didn't have. So I'll be fixing that. I'm not too keen on the fact that this turret sticks up, so I'm going to see if I can expand the cockpit so that that is now on that block. But I'm not going to worry too much if I can't, because it would bring the seat forward and make you a bit more vulnerable, I think. But I'll see. I'll see how it goes. It might be okay, but we'll see. Okay, so that's everything about these I wanted to talk about. Let me just check my notes and I will talk. Oh, yes, damage textures, right. Yes. Something I always forget to talk about. I have a damage texture that I texture the inside of blocks to be, so that as you take damage, the inside, the now exposed surfaces of blocks now look like smouldering metal, whereas if I didn't paint them they wouldn't. Missed. There's one last thing to mention now, and that is the naming convention for the Wimpomania line. So this is the rookie, that's the initiate, that's the trainee. So it all started with the starter class shuttle pod in StarMade. It was called Starter because it was supposed to be the starter ship that new players coming onto our server got for free. When I built out more of the Wimpomania line, and then of course called it Wimpomania line because it was originally just a one-off build, I decided, because I consider myself to be quite a noob when it comes to building, that all of my Wimpomania line of vehicles should be either synonyms of starter or synonyms of noob. So all of the words that the things in the Wimpomania line are named after mean either someone who is new at something or someone who is first at something. So that's why you get words like pioneer coming up eventually and that kind of thing. Discoverer. Or the synonyms of those synonyms. So yeah, there we go. There's one last thing to do, like I normally do on my tour, and that is to publish. Of course, I haven't filtered my builds, but now I have. Keep it private so that I can do, of course, the description on all the images and things. Okay, there we go. That's the end of the tour, so thank you very much for taking an interest in the rookie civilian fast attack and recon hover vehicle. I hope you get some use out of it, and hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So thank you again, and goodbye.